Hey Jessica, how you doing? Yes, okay, so wobbly and slanted. Yeah, that's a little bit of a problem, Jessica, and you'll see when you do your second iteration, it's going to be so much easier. But remember, craft counts in this assignment, so you want to be as neat and accurate as possible. I think the first thing that I would strive for in this assignment is getting a perfectly level baseline. All right, that's your foundation. That has got to be perfectly level. Right now, it's not. It's going this way. It's on a diagonal this way. So as we can see, the word itself kind of slants downhill, right? So also the next thing I notice is that the mean line or the x height, that this mean line is placed incorrectly. What's a mean line, Jessica? A mean line, okay, some of the terminology we really need to understand for this assignment is baseline, mean line, cap line, and x height. So the baseline is the line that the letters sit on, right? A mean line, okay, let's go from baseline to x height. X height is the height of the lowercase letters, all right? And a mean line is the line that connects those lowercase letters, right? So right now, this is not an accurate mean line, right? So basically what you want to do is the way to establish a mean line is draw out the baseline and then place the paper over your document with the letter forms and then just make a mark where the uppercase letter is right there. So you place the paper so that the letter sits right on the mean line. And then come up here and then determine where the height of the lowercase letters are, right? Draw a little mark there and then maybe place another letter over here. Draw a mark there and then connect those lines so you have a perfectly parallel mean line that reflects the x height of the letter form, right? Then what you want to do is do the same thing with the A with the cap B without tracing it. Just place the paper over there, place the cap B on the baseline, mark the cap height, and then mark that out. Once you have those three lines established, the spacing and the scale spatial relationships should be very accurate. Okay, so that's the first thing you want to do. Now, you really want to pay attention to craft here in terms of consistency of the shapes of the letter form. So we can see, let me just move that up a little bit so we fit both in the window. And we can see each of your A's is very inconsistent. You want your A's to look exactly like this. A couple of areas that you want to pay attention to the shapes of the counterform right here and here. See how this is a teardrop, but over here, this is just kind of an unusual kind of a random shape. Same with this. This is the closest to a teardrop, but it doesn't really resemble this shape. So you definitely want your letter forms, specifically the negative space around the letter forms, to really match in terms of the shapes, okay? A couple of other areas I think are of concern is the N. See this N right here? See the shoulder of the N kind of goes into this vertical stem of the M? Right here, look how thin that is. It's much thinner than the stroke width right here. So you want to depict that here. And the same thing in the lowercase a, which has also got a variable width stroke right here. Variable stroke weight right there. That's much thinner than this is right here. So you want to show that, all right? So, and then also right here, this lowercase a has got this kind of like teardrop right here. This kind of round area right here, but we don't see that. Okay, and then also the bottom of that portion of the A is not flat, it's on a little bit of a slant, as we can see there. So really, really pay attention to these letter forms when you're tracing. My recommendation is to trace out the hard line, contour lines of the letters and get those down, then go back in with a soft lead and fill them in. All right. Now, letter spacing is important because anytime the mind perceives a space, it wants to take a break. All right. So if there's a space, an unusual space between any letters and any word, the mind will break, and that slows down reading and it reduces retention and understanding of any given word or subsequently any given sentence or paragraph. So letter spacing is extremely important in that regard. Now here's what I want you to do. You've got some good letter spacing here. It's good what we consider normal letter spacing. Now what we want to do is we want to take a look at the shapes of the letters. We want to establish the space between the letters to be very consistent. So in other words, the volume between these letters should be equal. So if you were to disregard this open counter right here, pretend that's not there in the lowercase a, just draw a line right there, if you will, right? And then think about pouring a pitcher of water in here. How fast would it fill up? Will it hold the same amount of water as this? We can clearly see, no, this volume is much less than this volume because of these extra spaces right here. These are just a straight little rectangle right here. And this has all this extra space. So intuitively, what we want to do is move these two closer together to reduce that space. Then we would increase this space here, or move these farther apart to increase this space. to try to establish consistency in the volume between these two letter combinations, right? Here's your formula. The closest letter spacing is between two curved letter forms, followed by the next closest spacing would be between a straight letter form and a curved letter form, and then the widest letter spacing would be between two straight letter forms. Now, when I say the most narrow and the widest, it really shouldn't be noticeable. It should be such that you shouldn't be able to notice these subtle differences in the spacing between letters, but you definitely want to establish spacing just to make sure that the volume between letter forms is consistent. All right, that's why letter spacing is so important, and that's a basic formula for letter spacing in sans serif letter forms like we're using in this Franklin Gothic 200 point. All right, so those are my recommendations, and let's go ahead and establish those, and let's address those comments for your final iteration coming up this Sunday. Of course, if you have any questions, go ahead and let me know. I'll be glad to make any necessary clarifications. All right, great start, Jessica. Thank you very much for sharing.